Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator. Thank you for your efforts. We might agree to disagree, but a couple of observations, and I apologize not being here. Earlier, I was stuck at Bank and Financing, but more importantly, I'm the vice chair of the extraordinary session for the transportation.
Yes.
And the reason I bring that up because the vast conversation was about applying more taxes on gas because there is less gasoline consumption. And now, if we want to reduce it by 50% in 2030, what in the heck we're going to do then?
Well, that's why this is first extraordinary session on transportation is absolutely critical.
Yes. So you see where my
yes
concerns are. And then the other way to look at it, my point of view, instead of, let's say, saying that we're going to reduce consumption of petroleum by 50% come 2030, if we put that aside for a moment and say, let's increase the production of electrical cars and everything else that use less petroleum rather than attacking the petroleum products, it will be better suiting or better music to my ears, so to say. So just an observation.
Sure.
And for that reasons, I might not feel all that comfortable to go along with you this time, but I want you to know where I was coming from.
No, thank you very much. And through the chair, obviously, there's a couple points that may alleviate some concerns across the board, but perhaps more so from the Republican side. With regards to the 50% reduction, a lot of that is geared towards much more efficiency from our vehicles. So you get more mileage, you get more bang for the buck for the consumer. Advanced technologies, raising our standards. Detroit has done it before on numerous occasions. The catalytic converter, it started here in California back in the 60s. The California car standards, if you live in Alabama again or South Carolina, those are the California car standards. So better efficiency from our vehicles mile travel, and an issue that we're engaging with the fossil fuel industry, biofuels, an additive with a reformulation. And the point being, again, is we want to make it, cost effective for the consumer. So it's not 50% we're cutting petroleum use. I'm under no illusion at all whatsoever that gasoline is going to be stripped from the consumer daily life in California after that. I'm under no illusion that, in fact, half of the population in California will be driving electrical vehicles by the year 2030. That's just not reality, and I know that. But these will help us move us toward those goals, and I just want to emphasize that.
Thank you. Ms. Eggman?
Thank you, and thank you, Senator Pro Tem, for all your work on this. We talked earlier today, and it sounds. I'm sorry, I had to step out for a while, but it sounds like the CARB issue has been addressed, and that sounds like you are committed to continuing to work on that.
Absolutely.
I also would not like to abdicate the responsibility we have, and I certainly living in the Valley and representing a largely agricultural as well as distribution area of the state. I've heard a lot about CARB everywhere I go, so I share that concern. And then I just wanted to bring up, and I think Mr. Garcia brought up the issue of the waste facility in Stanislaus County. Stanislaus County, which is my neighboring district. I spent a lot of time out there. Initially it was talked that it was a typo, an error that it came out. Mm-hmm. And so it is important, I think, to me and to this area. I'll be supporting this today, that we really find a way to work this out.
Okay, absolutely.
Our economy depends on this kind of being able to turn things around to create energy. That it's been taken out of the renewables is concerning. So we want to do our best to get it back in,
I'm looking forward
and stop sending so much stuff to the landfills. Because I don't know, you visit a lot of facilities, but in areas with high poverty, like I represent, the landfills has even a greater burden. So whatever we can do to offset that is incredibly important for a lot of the things that you've already mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eggman. Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mine is a little bit of a comment and a little bit of a question as well. This is a bill that has a lot of goals, and the goals that you're trying to arrive at are some that, for the most part, I share with. I think it's where we ought to be going. The vehicle in which that you present as to how we get there are the ones that concern me a little bit. Ms. Eggman used the word abdicate. I didn't, for me to give this kind of unscripted power unregulated, limitless power to the CPUC, or I'm sorry, the CARB, to me is concerning. I'm going to be consistent as to the way I voted as a city council member. Then we used to have trash companies that would encourage the city council to let the city manager make those decisions and take it away from the hands of the elected officials. There was strategy behind that, and I wasn't comfortable with those strategies. It basically said that we, the elected officials, we, the ones that elected to make these big decisions that have a multi-billion-dollar impact for good or for bad in our communities, that we ought to be silent on. And I don't think that's what my district elected me to do. My district said, let's push for these goals, but we have to own it. We have to make these powerful, impactful decisions. I don't know anyone on that cardboard that is elected. I know that they're appointed, and I know that there's an appointee there by you, and an appointee there from the Speaker's office, and maybe someone from the Governor's office, if I understand the appointment process there. The concern here with me also is in alignment with Mr. Shajian's question with regards to the gas tax and the loss of revenue and the mitigation plan there. So I'd kind of like to get from you, what's the mitigation plan there? If we actually actualize and we hit the goal, then we're going to see a loss in taxation there. And, reaching a goal can be a good thing in terms of cleaning our environment on a greater level, and our reliance on petroleum. I also know that we're a state that depends greatly on revenues. You know, we make the biggest decisions that we make as a state, as a legislature, is what we do with the dollars, the limited, finite dollars we have to work with. So a multi-billion-dollar pot of dollars that would be impacted in the billions. I'd like to know what the mitigation plan is there. But ultimately, I want you to know as well, as you answer that first question, that there's got to be something that's being cued inside of you when you hear so many Democrats and just about every Republican saying there's a problem with forfeiting so much legislative power. And legislative, to me, I believe it to mean policing, oversight, and being the ones that make the law, not oversight, not CARB. Let them carry out the regulations and enforce, but we're the ones that make those laws. I can't forfeit that role. I wasn't elected to do that. So if you can help me understand on the mitigation of the potential loss.
Well, the mitigation is an issue that we're all going to deal with collectively. Mr. Hernandez, obviously, we're going to the first extraordinary session, and hence to deal with the issue with regards to transportation and what we'll do with our crumbling infrastructure. Obviously, those revenues have been declining quite rapidly, given the fact that many folks are leaving, combustion cars and moving on to other types of vehicles or public transportation. So I think that our colleagues in a bipartisan way are going to play, obviously, a big role. So that hopefully that will be defined in the first extraordinary session.
So this would be my response to that. If it's going to be, if we're going to give CARB this kind of power, then let it be their decision to figure it out.
No, that's two separate issues. You're referring to the gas tax,
right?
You're referring to that's two separate issues, right? There.
So I'm talking about the mitigation on the gas tax.
That's what I'm
reduction.
Yeah, but that's what I'm referring to. That has nothing to do with CARB, right there.
Well, I believe they're making decisions that will impact the purse. Then they ought to be making decisions about they have to come up with the mitigation plan as to how we address the loss. If they're going to be making decisions that impact, they have to be making decisions about the loss. And I think that they are connected.
No, we can make
from
that
decisions. Standpoint.
We can make those decisions, us collectively.
Well, I don't want to.
We're not going to get into back and forth.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Sounds like there's a disagreement, perhaps, about.
No, there's no disagreement. We won't do the colloquy. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
My concern, as I think I've already stated it, if we're going to, what's being proposed is a forfeiture of our role here, and I don't agree with that. Let the votes land where they are.
I wouldn't
Let's let Mr. Hernandez finish.
I just want, yes, please, if I may.
Sure, you may.
I think it's important that we stop the forfeiture of our power here as a legislature, as it is. We've done enough of that. And my votes have been consistent in the 5 years that I've been here, whether it's with the Coastal Commission and other commissions that have regulatory roles. I've never voted to expand powers. I've always voted to rein in. And there's reasons for that. Whether it's been the Coastal Commission, and there's a lot of good people that have served there, or whether it's been the cardboard, there has been overstepping. There has been overstepping of powers that have gone beyond regulatory powers, that have moved into the world of legislator powers. And today, per the assignment that was given to me by my voters, it's not been to increase the powers of the CARB and in such a significant level. They were talking multi-billion dollars and giving them basically an open check to do that, and without being responsible for what I would believe would be an economic adverse impact to our state coffers. They can't be separated and say we'll fix the problems that they drive us towards, but we'll fix it and they'll take us to the problem land. I don't agree with that. And I don't think that is consistent with our roles in this organizational governance structure we call the state legislature as we work with regulatory bodies. This is a complete transfer of power, and I guess I've made my point quite clear, but I'm not hearing an answer as to who's mitigating what is a forecasted loss on gas tax revenue. That's what I'm not hearing an answer to.
Okay. Would you like?
So I'd like to get an answer to that.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, I think I answered originally. You may not like the answer, but that's why we're having the first extraordinary session to deal with the transportation tax issue.
Okay. That's your question. That's your answer to the question. If there are no further questions, Ms. Garcia has a super quick final question.
I apologize. All this passion with ARB, and I forgot my second question earlier on the energy efficiency aspect of it all. And I asked this question because it wasn't clear to me about the amendments in Comments 8. You said we're not taking the amendments in Comment 8.
Correct. Yeah, not taking the amendments in Comment 8 and adding to Comment 9, we're making sure that the natural gas is short-term in nature.
Okay, so in that sense,
at this time,
the analysis points out that we have ambiguity about this doubling of energy efficiency, and is it each building or overall? And I would guess overall for flexibility purposes makes sense, but I will then reiterate my same point of you could get 50% and exclude a lot of disadvantaged communities along the way as we talk about these efficiencies and how we get there. And so as this moves forward, I get to do this again in natural resources, want some more clarity there, and how are we going to be intentional for those communities?
great, fantastic. Mr. Santiago.
It'll be 10 seconds.
That's fine.
I'm supportive of the bill today. I want to thank you for your work. But if I could be of any help, I'd like to also participate on helping you craft some of that language as it moves forward.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? There's no one left. Would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisles for a very robust discussion with regards to SB 350. I want to go back to a couple points, and perhaps I will help educate Mr. Hernandez on a couple points I think are absolutely very critical. Because there's a theme here that I think is right on target. Intentionality. If you do not move forward with a sense of intentionality, things by themselves don't correct themselves. The marketplace, as of today, has not shown that. And I think with SB 535, my measure, recognizing the auction revenues from cap and trade, that would be in the billions of dollars, unless you moved with a sense of intentionality, CARB themselves would not invest the necessary dollars in these communities. Unless you move with intentionality, through policymaking, through this legislative body. And that's how 535 came to fruition. In fact, 25% of all auction revenues will be dedicated to those communities that are disproportionately impacted by both climate change and other criteria pollutants. If that marker wasn't there with 535, guess what? Those communities, and a couple folks have brought it up today, communities of color, those at the lowest economic strata, those who suffer from asthma, the number one reason for absenteeism in our public school system, would not receive one single penny. That is intentionality. Let's go back to the issue of electrical vehicles. Whether it's for Tesla driving folks or folks who don't have the financial wherewithal to purchase a Tesla, or a high-end electrical vehicle, ZEV. Now, through SB 1275, we want to make sure that those folks at the lowest economic strata have the wherewithal through the rebates and the tax credit, plus submitting their old junker that emits a lot of carbon, that they have the ability to purchase an electrical vehicle. And this was witnessed just about a month ago when we actually crushed an old 1994 Ford Ranger. Big gas guzzler. Central Valley, Stockton, in fact. Latino immigrant family. And he drove off in an electrical vehicle, hybrid plug-in with his family. That is intentionality. That is not sitting here and allowing the marketplace by itself to correct the inequities. And now the focus right now is to make sure those at the lowest economic strata in fact benefit from climate change policies. It's been very interesting, some of the subtext of what we've been hearing in opposition to this measure with regards to coastal elites, which is actually a very old, outdated stereotype. Because I'm not a coastal elite, and I don't represent the coast. I, as a person of color, have moved with forcefulness and intentionality, measures to bring about equity in those communities who have been marginalized both socioeconomically as well as politically. Senators Isidore Hall, and Holly Mitchell, and Ricardo Lara, and Tony Mendoza, and Ed Hernandez, and Connie Leyva. These are individuals who don't represent coastal elites, geographically, quote unquote. These are people who represent working class people throughout the state of California. So there's an outdated old stereotype that continues to be perpetuated for political reasons. How we take cap and trade dollars and how we invest this wisely so all individuals benefit and how we democratize this process is absolutely critical. On the issue of energy efficiency, for example, with SB 39, when we closed an egregious corporate tax loophole and we took this to the ballot, we did so in a way where it was not about a per capita distribution of the dollars, but rather a weighted formula system to those communities who need it the most benefited. And those communities who actually emitted more carbon would actually have the ability to reduce their energy load, therefore saving money and putting more money back into the classroom, into teacher salaries, and so forth. In fact, one of the biggest winners is the Central Valley. The Central Valley is one of the biggest winners from these energy efficiency dollars from Prop 39, closing the egregious corporate tax loophole. They got overwhelming bipartisan support. Unfortunately, not on this Senate floor, Assembly floor, but we had to go through the voters because we couldn't get the two-thirds at the time that were needed. So it's about democratizing the process, and I agree, colleagues. So when I hear the theme of carb, 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 and more carb, we're on the same page. We're all on the same page. That's why I moved forward 1275 and 535 with a sense of intentionality. And this is something where we can work collectively together with a sense of intentionality. The characterizations of giving them a blank check are absolutely inaccurate. This is where we can work together. This is the first time, Mr. Hernandez, I've heard your comments or your concerns. Very first time. But I welcome you into my office so we can engage much further in detail on this issue. So with that, Mr. Chair, I really thank you for your indulgence. I thank you for your wonderful staff work as well as your leadership on this issue and many other issues as it relates to climate change. Looking forward to not just continue the good work with my Democratic colleagues, but also too with my Republican colleagues as well too. I want to have an open door. Mr. Patterson, first time we've ever spoken before. You're more than welcome to come to my office anytime you like.
Thank you. Sounds like you have an open door policy.
Mr.
Great.
Patterson's welcome.
That's great.
Hey.
Okay, so the bill is SB 350. We have a motion from Mr. Quirk. We have a second from Ms. Garcia. The author has agreed to take all of the amendments with the exception of comment number 8. I'm going to read this so we're certain. Section 25943A4, the Commission shall adopt, implement, and enforce a policy to hold sellers of energy efficiency improvements financially responsible for sale claims of energy savings from energy efficiency improvements that are not met. You're going to continue working with us and with members on that. And with respect to comment number 9, section 740.1.5a, transportation electrification, natural gas vehicles. We shall insert natural gas vehicles, insert as a short-term measure.
Okay.
Fuel cell vehicles. Okay, is everyone clear on the motion? Again, a motion from Mr. Quirk and a second from Ms. Garcia. Please call the roll.
The motion is do pass as amended and re-refer to Natural Resources Committee. Rendon?
Aye.
Rendon, aye. Patterson? No. Patterson, no. Eshajian? No. Eshajian, no. Bonilla? Aye. Bonilla, aye. Burke? Aye. Burke, aye. Eggman? Aye. Eggman, aye. Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Hadley? No. Hadley, no. Hernandez? No. Hernandez, no. Obernolte? No. Obernolte, no. Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago?
Aye.
Santiago, aye. Ting?
Aye.
Ting, aye. Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Where's Dolly? Dolly. Nine, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The bill's out.
Thank you much, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pardon me?
Next up is Mr. Hertzberg, SB 697.
Move the bill.
Second.
A motion from Mr. Achaji and a second from Ms. Burke.
Get a motion and a second, Senator.
Your bill is wildly popular, Senator.
I just want to apologize. I was under the impression that the pro tem was closing. I didn't mean to interrupt your exact question. It was a good question, by the way. Bill's been moved and seconded. It came out of the other house unanimously. Basically, what we're doing in a nutshell, I'm carrying this for the PUC and to make it as brief as possible given the amount of work you engaged in the last measure. It really tries to reorganize all of the reporting requirements. I think there's 38 different reports. I think the amendments that we're accepting, I will be accepting the amendments. Like 8.
Please exit quietly. Please continue, Mr. Hertzberg.
Something like 80 pages or so, but it'll roll down to a lot less ultimately when these come into alleged council form, but enrolled into the substance of the bill. But it really is trying to reorganize because I'm told that the PUC that there's so many reports and so many issues that it's difficult for them to even follow and find what they're required to do. So it's something at the request of the PUC. In addition, there's another decal issue that was inconsistent with a measure that Senator Hill had last year. This will save money by avoiding us putting decals on these cars. I ask for your vote. Happy to answer any questions. And witnesses.
Thank you. Witnesses?
Michael Minkus with the Public Utilities Commission. In support, appreciate the reporting amendments that improve accessibility to all the Public Utilities Code provision reports and accountability for the PUC and others reporting under those provisions.
We have additional witnesses.
Mr. Chair and members, Greg Cook, representing the Greater California Livery Association. We're in support of the bill and happy to save the PUC $75,000 a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? We already did.
It's already done. Thank you.
Are there any questions from any committee members? Great. Would you like to close?
Respectfully ask for an aye vote, members. Thank you.
We have a motion from motion is due pass and re-refer to Judiciary Committee. Due pass as amended.
As amended.
As amended.
Correct.
Motion from Ms. Garcia, second from Ms. Bonilla. Please take the roll. Yeah, she said you.
A lot of us.
Brendan?
Aye.
Brendan, aye. Patterson? Aye. Patterson, aye. Eshajian? Eshajian, aye. Bonilla? Aye. Bonilla, aye. Burke? Aye. Burke, aye. Eggman? Aye. Eggman, aye. Daly? Aye. Daly, aye. Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Hadley? Aye. Hadley, aye. Hernandez? Obernolte? Aye. Obernolte, aye. Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago? Aye. Santiago, aye. Ting? Aye. Ting, aye. Williams. 12-0.
That bill is out.
Thank you. I think the Pro Tem wants to substitute the role in SB 350 on that measure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes the hearing of bills. We will hold the roll open for 5 minutes to allow absent members to vote.